In recent weeks, the attention of global markets and analytical centers has been focused on a sharp and potentially pivotal move. According to insiders and reputable publications, China is seriously considering the introduction of tariff duties of 150% on American steel in response to the recent decision by Donald Trump's administration to raise tariffs on Chinese goods to 100%. If China indeed takes this step, the consequences for American industry, particularly the steel and machinery sectors, could be devastating. According to information leaked through diplomatic channels and published by several analytical outlets, including Politico Asia and the South China Morning Post, Chinese authorities have already approved the basic structure of the tariff mechanism. The duties will apply not only to finished steel, but also to semi-finished products used in construction, automobile manufacturing, and the U.S. defense industry. In other words, the blow will fall not only on exporters, but also on domestic American manufacturers dependent on Chinese metal supplies. For many enterprises in the Midwest, where metallurgy forms the backbone of the regional economy, this could become a critical moment. Rising production costs, halted assembly lines, and inevitable layoffs. Trump's team views China's move as an act of economic blackmail and is already preparing retaliatory measures, including possible subsidies for U.S. manufacturers and an expanded sanctions list. However, economists warn that such a tit-for-tat tariff logic could lead to a spiral of mutual destruction. In essence, this marks a new phase of the trade war, where every next move makes compromise increasingly unlikely. Experts note that the impact of China's steel tariffs could prove far more painful for the U.S. than it appears at first glance. American industry has long been integrated into global supply chains, and many factories use Chinese steel as the basis for production, from automobiles to household appliances. The introduction of 150% duties will automatically raise the prices of finished goods, increase costs for consumers, and slow economic growth. According to the Brookings Institution, the American economy has already lost about 0.7% of GDP due to trade conflicts with China, and the new wave of tariffs could double that figure. Analysts at Bloomberg Economics note that such a move by Beijing could give the country several advantages. First, China gains the opportunity to accelerate domestic industrialization and reduce dependence on American supply chains. Second, the 150% tariff effectively blocks the entry of American steel into the Chinese market, opening the way for local producers and partners from Russia, Indonesia, and India. Third, it sends a powerful political signal, a demonstration that China is capable of responding symmetrically to U.S. pressure while maintaining internal stability. However, some experts warn that the consequences could be unpredictable. If the United States responds with reciprocal measures, global trade could face a new wave of destabilization, considering that China and the United States together account for almost one-third of global industrial output. An escalation of the tariff war could lead to rising commodity prices, a slowdown of the European and Asian economies, and a global wave of inflation. The World Trade Organization has already expressed concern over the situation and urged both sides to negotiate. But according to CNN business sources, the Trump administration does not consider rolling back the tariffs, viewing them as a strategically justified instrument of pressure. China, however, appears to be preparing for a long game. According to Asia Times, Beijing is planning a range of additional measures, from restrictions on U.S. agricultural imports to a review of American companies' access to state tenders. The Chinese press calls this the second phase of economic confrontation. In parallel, the People's Bank of China is developing programs to stabilize the yuan and contain possible capital outflows. For the United States, all this could result in the loss of thousands of jobs, especially in states where metallurgy, mechanical engineering, and automobile manufacturing form the basis of the economy. According to economists at Harvard Business School, if the tariff does reach 150%, the price of American steel in the domestic market will rise by at least 35%. This will increase the cost of infrastructure projects, construction materials, and ultimately hit consumers. Meanwhile, Beijing gains a strategic advantage. It demonstrates the ability to act asymmetrically and swiftly, without waiting for coordination or parliamentary approval. For China's leadership, this is an opportunity to show the world that the era of unilateral American pressure is over. Moreover, inside China, this move could become an important element of propaganda, a symbol of national independence and economic resilience. China is intensifying its diplomatic and strategic activity on the global stage. According to South China Morning Post and Reuters, Beijing is holding consultations with allies and partners across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa to minimize the potential negative impact of U.S. countermeasures on its export flows. The Chinese government also plans to stimulate domestic steel production and industrial processing, allowing the country to offset possible losses in foreign markets and strengthen the position of local companies. Experts note that this comprehensive strategy enables Beijing to pursue several goals simultaneously, containing U.S. pressure, supporting domestic economic growth, and demonstrating its capacity for strategic planning amid global instability. Beyond the economic sphere, the move also carries political weight. China is showing it is ready to respond asymmetrically, strengthening its negotiating position and signaling to the world its independence and power. For the American side, the situation remains extremely difficult. Steel and machinery companies will have to adapt to a sharp rise in production costs, while consumers will face higher prices. In the event of an escalation of the trade war, analysts warn of a potential slowdown in U.S. and global economic growth, rising inflation, and complications in international cooperation across strategic industries. Thus, the introduction of 150% tariffs on American steel could become a defining event that sets the tone for economic confrontation between the world's two largest economies in the coming years. Experts also note that the Trump administration is not yet prepared for such a sharp response from China. According to Reuters and CNN Business, the White House lacks a clearly developed contingency plan in the event of 150% tariffs on American steel, and any attempt at reciprocal measures will take time and may face political resistance within Congress. At the same time, Beijing is counting on this factor, using America's lack of preparedness as a strategic advantage. China is simultaneously strengthening its domestic programs to diversify exports and develop high-tech industries, modernizing infrastructure, and stimulating internal demand to minimize the impact of possible economic shocks. This comprehensive approach enables Beijing to consolidate the position of national manufacturers, reduce dependence on external markets, and at the same time demonstrate to the world its ability to counter U.S. economic pressure in an asymmetric and strategically calculated way. In the end, a troubling picture is emerging. The trade confrontation between the world's two largest economies is once again slipping out of control, and the stakes are rising. American factories risk shutting down due to soaring production costs, while China is strengthening its domestic market and showing its readiness to withstand sanctions pressure. The only question is who will blink first, Washington or Beijing? But one thing is already clear. If China truly imposes 150% tariffs on American steel, the world will enter a new era of global economic confrontation where there may be no winners at all. What do you think? Will China actually take such a step? And how will it affect the global economy? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. See you soon.